My dear child. Let me ask you something, and I need you to be honest with yourself. Last night, while you were sleeping, or maybe while you were pretending not to care. Did you feel it? That strange, weightless ache in the center of your chest. The one you couldn't explain. The one you blamed on exhaustion, on stress, on nothing at all. That wasn't nothing. That was your soul, knowing something your mind wasn't ready to hear. Because last night, while you were here, your soulmate sat across a candlelit table from someone you pass in hallways. Someone you laugh with. Someone whose name you never thought twice about. I'm going to say that again, slowly. The person destined for you, the one your heart has whispered about in the dark, was on a dinner date last night. And their date was not a stranger. Their date was someone you know. Now before your mind rushes to defend them. Before you tell yourself they don't even know each other, or it was probably nothing. Stop. Because here's what I haven't told you yet. That dinner wasn't romantic. Not the way you're imagining. There were no stolen glances under soft lighting. No laughter spilling into the night like a secret language between two people falling in time. It was something else entirely. It was a conversation that should never have happened. An invitation disguised as coincidence. And the person across from your soulmate, the one you know. They weren't there to fall in love. They were there to block a bridge. Can you feel the shift in the room? That tightness in your throat? That's the part of you that always suspected. The part that knew, somehow, that not everyone smiling at you has your future in their hands. Here's the truth they don't want you to figure out. Your soulmate didn't choose that dinner. They were guided there. Pushed. By energy they couldn't name and pressure they couldn't explain. They showed up confused, and left even more confused. But here's what they didn't leave behind. Their memory of you. In fact, the entire time that fork touched that plate, the entire time small talk filled the silence, your name was a ghost at that table. You were the unspoken third chair. Your soulmate felt you. Missed you. Compared everything to a version of love they haven't even lived yet. But here's where it gets dangerous. Because the person you know, the one sitting across from them, they noticed that distraction. They felt the weight of your invisible presence. And now? Now they're afraid. Not of you hurting them. No. Something far more calculated. They're afraid of you waking up. Pause right there. Let that sink into your bones. Because part 2 isn't going to ask what you think happened. Part 2 is going to show you exactly what was whispered in your absence. And why that dinner last night might actually be the very thing that brings your soulmate running straight to you. If you're ready to know, say yes by listening closely. Part 2 reveals the words that were spoken about you, and the one question your soulmate is asking about you right now, at this very moment. They asked a question about you last night. Not out loud. Never out loud. That would have been too honest, too dangerous, too close to admitting something real in a room full of artificial light and arranged silence. No, this question lived in the space between heartbeats. While your soulmate lifted a glass of wine they didn't want, while they nodded at a story they didn't care about, their soul leaned across the table and whispered something their lips would never say. Why doesn't it feel like this with them? And here's what breaks the silence of heaven. The person sitting across from them, the one you know, heard it. Not with ears. With panic. Because when someone is sitting across from your future, and your future keeps glancing toward an invisible third person, the pretender at the table feels the ground shift. So they did what threatened people always do. They changed the subject. Quickly. Sharply. With a smile that didn't reach their eyes. They said your name. Not kindly. Not casually. They dropped your name into the conversation like a stone into still water, hoping the ripples would look like concern, but intending them as chains. You know, I've always wondered about them. Don't you think they're a little complicated? Complicated. That was the word. Such a small weapon. Such a quiet assassination. But your soulmate didn't argue. Didn't defend you. Didn't stand up and declare what any true heart would declare. And before you feel that sting, before you mistake silence for betrayal, listen closely. Their silence wasn't agreement. Their silence was shock. Because in that moment, your soulmate realized something terrifying. They had never spoken your name to this person. Never. Not once. So how did this stranger at the table, this person you know to bring you up? The temperature of the room changed. Not dramatically. Not with thunder or crashing glass. But with something far worse. A long, stretching pause. Your soulmate's fork hovered midair. Their smile froze. And for 3 full seconds, time stopped asking permission to exist. Then your soulmate did something the other person didn't expect. They smiled back. Not warmly. Not coldly either. Something in between. Something that said, I see you. I see what you're doing. And I will remember this. That smile was the first real thing your soulmate had shown all night. And the person across from them? The one you know? They saw it. And for the first time all evening, they felt genuine fear. Not fear of losing the dinner. Not fear of embarrassment. Fear that their words didn't push your soulmate away from you. Fear that their words just pushed your soulmate toward the truth. Here's what nobody at that table understood. That dinner wasn't about love. It wasn't about romance or destiny or two people finding each other by accident. That dinner was a test. And both of them failed it. But only one of them failed in a way that changes everything. Because your soulmate left that restaurant not confused about you, but furious at themselves for how long they've waited. And the person you know? They left celebrating. Believing they had won. Believing they had planted enough doubt, enough complication, enough quiet poison to last for months. They were wrong. So beautifully, dangerously, world-breakingly wrong. Because what they don't know, what neither of them knows, is that you weren't sleeping peacefully last night. You were dreaming of a table, a candle, and a hand reaching for yours across the distance. That wasn't a dream. That was a transmission. And in part 3, I'm going to tell you exactly what your soulmate is about to do next. The move they're planning right now. The text they're typing and deleting. The risk they're finally willing to take. But I need to know. Are you ready to hear what happens in the next 72 hours? Because part 3 doesn't ask if you believe in signs anymore. 72 hours. That's how long your soulmate gave themselves to forget that dinner. To convince themselves it meant nothing. To return to the numb comfort of almost, but not yet. They failed in less than 12. Because here's what happened the moment they got home last night. The part no one else saw. The part that exists only between them and the ceiling they stared at until 3:47 in the morning. They picked up their phone. Not to scroll. Not to escape. But to find you. Not your social media. Not your photos. Something far more dangerous. They opened an old conversation. A message you sent weeks ago. Months, maybe. Something small. Something you probably forgot you even wrote. And they read it. Once. Twice. A dozen times. Until the words stopped looking like text and started sounding like your voice. That was the moment the dinner died. Not when they walked out the door. Not when they said goodnight to the person you know. But right there. In the dark. with the blue light of a screen painting their face and a question burning in their chest. What if I've been looking at the wrong person this entire time? But here's what they don't know yet. What they can't know until this moment right now. You felt them do it. That restless energy around midnight? That sudden urge to check your own phone for no reason? That strange, electric certainty that someone out there was thinking your name with trembling hands? That was real. That was the bridge between you and them, a bridge the person at that dinner tried to burn down, suddenly glowing brighter than ever. And now we arrive at the part that will sound impossible. The person you know, the one who sat across from your soulmate, they're not done. They felt something break the next morning. A shift in the atmosphere. A silence where there used to be daily messages. A coldness where there used to be warmth. And they're afraid. Not of losing your soulmate. No, something deeper. They're afraid of being seen. Because what they said about you at that table, the quiet insinuations, the gentle cruelty wrapped in friendly concern. None of it was true. Every single word was a mirror. A confession disguised as observation. Every time they called you complicated, they were describing their own fear of simplicity. Every time they questioned your intentions, they were revealing their own. And here's what your soulmate realized this morning. The person who warned them about you, has never once asked how you make them feel. Only what you might take. Only what you might become. Only how you might eventually disappoint. That's not concern. That's control. And your soulmate is starting to see it. Slowly. Painfully. Like waking from a dream you didn't know was a dream. So now the question isn't if something will happen. The question is when. Because I can see something you can't. Something happening right now as you read these words. Your soulmate is standing somewhere, a kitchen, a parking lot, a hallway, staring at their phone, with your name half-typed in a message they're terrified to send. They're not hesitating because they don't want to reach out. They're hesitating because they know, deep down, that once they reach out, there's no going back. And the person you know? The one who planned that dinner? They have no idea that the trap they set, the one designed to separate you forever, just caught the only person they were trying to protect. Themselves. Part 4 reveals the message your soulmate is trying to send right now, word for word, and why your next 24 hours will decide everything. But I'll only share it if you're ready to hear what happens when two souls stop waiting for permission. They wrote the message. Not the way you're hoping. Not with poetry or confessions or 3 words that change a life. Something quieter. Something that looks, on the surface, almost disappointing. It's 3 words. But not those 3 words. Here's exactly what your soulmate typed. Read these letters carefully, because they are not what they appear to be. Can we talk? 14 characters. No emoji. No exclamation. No timestamp suggesting urgency. If you saw it across someone's shoulder, you'd shrug. You'd think polite. Casual. Maybe even distant. But you'd be wrong. Because what your soulmate actually wrote, beneath those safe, boring, utterly forgettable words, is something else entirely. They wrote, I surrender. They wrote, I don't understand what's happening to me. They wrote, every wall I built, you walked through without even knocking. They wrote, that person I had dinner with last night? They talked about you for 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes, I learned more about their fears than I ever learned about their heart. They wrote, I'm terrified of you. Not because you're dangerous. Because you're not. And I don't know what to do with someone who doesn't need to hurt me to love me. That's what's hiding inside those 3 tiny words. But here's where the story turns in a direction you didn't see coming. That message? They haven't sent it. Not yet. And they might not. Not because they changed their mind. Not because the dinner date whispered something new. But because someone else is standing between you and that message right now, at this very moment, in a room you've never been inside. The person you know made a phone call this morning. Not to your soulmate. To someone who knows you. Someone close. Someone whose opinion you trust. And they didn't say you were complicated this time. They said you were manipulative. They said you were waiting. Calculating. Playing a long game nobody else can see. They took the very love your soulmate is starting to feel for you, and painted it as a strategy. Here's the cruelty of it, they almost believe their own lie now. Because the only thing more dangerous than someone who deceives others, is someone who has deceived themselves so completely that their face never flinches when they lie. Your soulmate doesn't know about this phone call. But they felt it. That's the part that will keep you up tonight. The invisible thread between you and them doesn't just carry love. It carries interference. Static. A strange heaviness that arrived sometime this afternoon without explanation. They almost deleted the message because of it. 3 times. Their thumb hovered over the send button. 3 times. Something whispered not yet. But not never. Do you hear the difference? It's the difference between a door that's locked and a door that's waiting for the right key to turn. Here's what happens now. Your soulmate is about to do something they've never done before. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Something small. Almost invisible. They're going to ask someone a question about you. Someone neutral. Someone who wasn't at that dinner. Someone who has nothing to gain or lose. And that person's answer, which will arrive in less than 24 hours, is going to crack something open. Not their doubt. Their certainty. Because the truth about you is not complicated. It never was. The only thing complicated is how many people have needed you to be the villain, so they could feel like the hero of their own story. Part 5 doesn't ask if they'll send the message. Part 5 shows you the moment they stop waiting for permission to feel something real, and the unexpected person who helps them take the first step. Do you want to see what happens when silence finally breaks? They didn't ask a friend. They didn't ask family. They didn't ask anyone you'd expect. Your soulmate asked a stranger. Not on purpose. Not because they planned it. But because life has a cruel and beautiful habit of placing the right person in the wrong moment, just to see if you're paying attention. Here's what happened. 3 hours after almost sending that message, your soulmate walked into a place they've been 100 times. Coffee shop. Grocery store. Gas station. The location doesn't matter. What matters is who was standing there. Someone who doesn't know you. Someone who doesn't know the person from the dinner. Someone with no side to take and no history to protect. And without warning, without even meaning to, your soulmate said your name out loud for the first time since that night. Not dramatically. Not tearfully. Just, you know, there's this person. And the stranger didn't flinch. Didn't warn. Didn't offer opinions wrapped in concern. The stranger just listened. Nodded once. And said something so simple, so devastatingly honest, that your soulmate nearly broke right there in the middle of fluorescent lighting and bad coffee. They said, sounds like you already know. You're just scared to admit it. 14 words. From someone who doesn't know your middle name. Who doesn't know what you do for work or where you grew up or whether you're complicated or manipulative or any of the other words thrown at you like stones. And here's what happened in that moment. Every argument your soulmate had been rehearsing, every reason to wait, every justification for staying exactly where they were. It collapsed. Not because the stranger was persuasive. But because the stranger had nothing to gain. And nothing to lose. And sometimes the most dangerous person to a lie, is someone who doesn't need it to survive. Your soulmate didn't send the message in that parking lot. But they stopped pretending they wouldn't. And the person you know? The one who made that phone call? The one who painted you as a strategist, a manipulator, a long game player? They're about to make a mistake. A big one. Because they can feel something shifting. The ground moving beneath their feet. The dinner that was supposed to seal something, instead opened something. So tonight, while your soulmate lies awake replaying a stranger's words, the person you know is going to do something desperate. They're going to reach out to you. Not to apologize. Not to confess. But to check. To test. To see if you know. To see if you suspect. To see if their mask is still in place. They'll send something casual. Harmless. A meme. A question about nothing. Thinking of you, that means the opposite. And here's where you have a choice you didn't ask for. Do you reply like nothing happened? Do you stay silent? Or do you do something they never expected, something your soulmate will feel in their bones before they ever hear about it? Because Part 6 doesn't reveal what they do next. Part 6 reveals what you are about to do, and why that single decision will echo louder than any dinner conversation ever could. The next move isn't theirs. It's yours. Are you ready to see what happens when the person who was never supposed to know, suddenly knows everything? You already know who it is. That's the part heaven doesn't need to whisper. Your mind is racing through faces right now, names, moments, small suspicions you talked yourself out of months ago. Stop talking yourself out of it. The person who sat across from your soulmate last night, the one who smiled while planting doubt, the one who made that phone call this morning. You've defended them. You've made excuses for them. You've told yourself they're just complicated, just struggling, just not like that. They are exactly like that. And now they're typing. Not to your soulmate. To you. 3 messages. I'll tell you exactly what they say before they send them. The first one lands soft, "Hey, been thinking about you lately." Innocence. Warmth. The kind of opener that makes you feel seen. The second one lands sharper, "Everything okay? You seem different." Not in a bad way. Just, distant. Testing. Probing. Looking for cracks in your energy. The third one. They won't send unless you reply to the first 2. But it's already written in their drafts. Waiting. Poison dressed as love. I hope you know you can tell me anything. I'd never judge you. You know that, right? That last one isn't an offer. It's a trapdoor. Because what they're really saying is, tell me what you know, so I can twist it before it reaches them. Here's what they don't realize. You're not going to reply. Not because you're afraid. Not because you're playing games. But because silence, when chosen intentionally, is louder than any argument you could write. Your silence will terrify them more than your anger ever could. Because anger means you care enough to engage. Anger means they still have access. Anger means you haven't figured out the full picture yet. But silence? Silence means you already know. Silence means you've connected dots they didn't know were visible. Silence means the dinner conversation, the phone call, the whispers, none of it stayed hidden. And a person who has built their world on controlling narratives cannot survive being truly seen. So here's what happens next. And this is the part that will leave you breathless. Your soulmate is going to feel your silence. Not hear it. Feel it. Like a frequency change in a room they're not even standing in. They're going to wake up tomorrow with an unexplainable certainty that something shifted while they were sleeping. And without knowing why, without understanding the source, they're going to do something they've been afraid to do for longer than you realize. They're going to stop waiting for you to reach out. And they're going to start looking for you. Not online. Not through messages. In the places where real things happen. In the spaces where small talk dies and something honest has room to breathe. But there's someone standing in that doorway. The person you know, the one typing messages you'll never answer, they're about to do something irreversible. Something not even they fully understand yet. Not because they're evil. Not because they're cruel. Because they're desperate. And desperate people don't protect bridges. They burn them. Part 7 doesn't ask if your soulmate will find you. Part 7 shows you exactly when, where, and why the person standing between you won't see it coming until it's already over. Do you want to witness the moment the waiting ends?